Hey there, it's Lisa Danforth, business strategist and leadership vision coach. And today I am chatting with Ronda Berns, sales coach and consultant. We had a few technical difficulties as we're jumping on, so forgive us for just being a couple of minutes late. But if you are watching us live or on the replay, please do post where you're dialing, calling in from, wherever it may be, so we can know, because we are broadcasting live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So, and if you'd like to join the conversation, you can jump in via StreamYard or just pop your comments in the section and we'll be able to jump right in there. But again, today, Ronda Berns, the fabulous Ronda Berns, who has been a dear friend of mine for so many years, and we've worked together in so many different businesses. But before we jump in, I really want to share a couple of upcoming LinkedIn Lives that we have coming up. I'm going to put on my glasses so I can see. Today, again, selling in a virtual world, which is essentially what we're all doing. October 1st, we have Lori Hybe from Keystone Click. She's going to be talking about why research is so vital to developing your digital marketing strategy. And then October 8th, see if I can speak, John Schraven. He's going to be talking about negotiations, coming at it from a little bit of a different perspective. What is it that gets us tripped up before we even walk into the negotiations? So important. And October 15th, I'm going to be talking with ex-Navy SEAL and teamwork expert Bill Atkinson on character and setting the example as a person and a team. And then on October 22nd, it is Lisa Wilson, who is a leadership vision coach and HR consultant, talking about leadership in tough times and how it requires more self-care. Who here, pop a little thing in there below in the comment, who here needs a little extra self-care as we're going through all of this. So again, jumping in and chatting with Ronda Berns, who is a sales consultant, sales coach, absolutely phenomenal. She is a friend, a colleague, and just an all-around amazing person. I'm going to share a little bit about Ronda, and then I'm going to let you take it over, Ronda. But in addition to sales coach and consulting, Ronda was also the VP of tourism for the Vermont Chamber of Commerce for years. She was a restaurant owner, national sales director for a lodge in Stowe, Vermont, and then also a director of sales for a resort in Stowe, Vermont. And that's just the last year and a half. She has a long list. So she absolutely knows what she's talking about when it comes to sales. So again, if you're just joining us, please pop in where you are dialing in from. And I'm going to hand it over to you, Ronda. Can you share a little bit more about you and kind of how you got into this much needed space in business?
Thank you, Lisa. It's great to be here. My hospitality background, or what I've been doing hospitality for the past, I'm going to just say 35 years and just sort of plus and leave it there. But I was born into the hospitality industry, and I spent most of my career doing hospitality and tourism. Started off in operations and then got the opportunity to move into sales at a very young age, which was great. However, what I found when I was in the hospitality industry, there was very little training. So even though I worked at the front desk of a hotel and I knew how to talk to people, and I spent all those years meeting people from pretty much all over the world in multiple hotels, when I got into a sales environment, what I found was I was basically given a desk, a phone, and a bunch of clients, and I really didn't know what I was doing with them. Oh yeah, it was like, here you go, have fun.
Good luck.
This is your quota. Good luck. We'll see you on Friday and see how you've done. And for a couple of years, because I have a little bit of a gift of gab, for those people who know me, I like to talk. I could have great conversations with people, but the challenge, what I was finding, is that I would win a piece of business and I would get excited about it, but I didn't really know why. And then the more frustrating part was I would lose a piece of business and I thought I had a great connection with my clients, but I realized I might not have, or I didn't really know why I was losing a piece of business. So for me, after those number of years in the hotels, I finally got an opportunity after about 5 years of selling. I got an opportunity to go through a number of sales training programs. And that's when I started to light up. I realized that sales is a skill. It's not that you can just be good at talking, but it's a skill that needs to be learned. It needs to be practiced. It's like anything else that we do. If someone asks you to make something, but doesn't tell you how to make it, it's very difficult. It's uncomfortable. You always feel frustrated, like, should I be doing something else? So once I had an opportunity to go through a sales training program and really understand, and actually I was thinking about this the other day, I've probably been through about 20 or 25 different sales training programs.
Wow. That's why you have so many different angles to what you do. That's great.
Yeah, because not any one way. I mean, the basics of the foundation of sales is pretty much the same, but how do you use that in different environments? And then how do you take it to the next step? How do you use it in what you're going to be talking about is negotiation? How do you do that when you're trying to get into contracts or presenting? So there's a lot of different things of knowing what to do next. So I was really blessed with that opportunity. And what I also found was when I got into management, I loved teaching. So not only did I enjoy selling because I became very good at it, but I also found that it was really rewarding to help other people because I believe that sales changes people's lives. It opens up doors, whether you're doing this for clients or you're doing this for yourself. If you're looking to interview and change jobs, or you're just looking to persuade someone to do something you want them to do.
We do that with our kids every day, right?
Exactly, right? So what is the skills that are needed to understand how to do that? And when I know so many people that are just absolutely brilliant at what they do and love the products that they sell or they've produced or made. But when they start to try to go tell the world what they do, they get completely stuck. So what I've really yeah, Lisa, you were one of my prize students.
Most difficult prize student.
But one of my most successful students too. So that's been wonderful to work with you. But that just comes from, really spending the time to understand that you have a gift and you have things that the world needs and that you can change people's lives by bringing that to everybody else. And what my passion is and what I enjoy doing is opening those doors and of showing you through a skill of sales, the sales skills of the foundations, you now have the confidence to go talk to people in a way that shows up so you can build that trust. You're confident. They know that you're competent to do the job and you start doing what you set out to do in the first place. So it's incredibly rewarding for me. So that's how I started my own business. That's why I love doing the training that I do and the coaching, because it really does change people's lives and lets them decide to do whatever they want to do next.
I will absolutely attest to that. It definitely changes lives because it doesn't remove the discomfort of picking up the phone or prospecting by any means, but it makes it so much easier because you're coming from a place of service.
Exactly.
Can you share a little bit about a time when you really saw that there was a way of doing this that would invite people to lean in? Because you definitely have sort of a process that you bring people through. But when was it within your career that you really noticed, hey, wait a minute, this is working? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. One of the things that really makes a difference, we talk about building rapport with people, and building rapport with people that you want to be friends with is a little bit different than when you're trying to build rapport with people that you want to do business with. It's not that much different, but you really need to come at it at a more professional level versus the friendship. So it's about really coming in and coming up with better questions to ask people. So 2 parts. I realized when I first started, I was asking lots of questions. I was genuinely interested in who they were. I thought I was trying to be their friend, but being their friend didn't mean they want to do business with me. When I learned how to ask strategic questions, when I learned the reason why I was asking these questions, and I was trying to figure out what they needed and what they wanted and what they were trying to achieve. And then I was very specific in getting them to elaborate, like, how does that work? Where I could find out exactly how their philosophy was and what they were trying to do. Then I could figure out whether or not I was a good match for them, whether it was a hotel I was working at, whether it was one of the organizations I was representing, or now it's me personally. By asking questions in a different way and being more strategic, changed the way the conversations went. It just changed everything because now it was all about the client and what they needed and wanted.
Right.
And then when I went to present, I was presenting to what they needed and wanted. I wasn't just, randomly throwing out this whole laundry list of things like, oh, I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this. And we We
You do
naturally
that.
do that, right?
Right.
We naturally do that whole laundry list because why? We didn't ask the client what they need or want.
Mhm.
So if you can slow down and be more strategic, and yeah, it was a big aha moment when I first went through my first training program. Literally halfway through the program, my numbers doubled. By the time we finished, my sales numbers actually quadrupled, and I was able to make president's clubs. But it was all because I was now putting a skill to practice, and I was using it every day. And trust me, I didn't win every one of the people I was talking to. I still made mistakes, but I learned from them, right? So if you can learn from the mistakes that you're making, adapt, change, and just learn and move forward. I mean, people are human on the other side. So, they're pretty forgiving.
I think you just touched on something that is so important, and really the topic is, to adapt and change,
Yeah.
because we really are needing to shift and pivot. And it was difficult enough to sell in person and be able to connect and feel the other person's energy and follow the conversation. Can you start sharing about selling in a virtual world, how things have changed?
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those social butterflies. So if I'm given an opportunity to go to a trade show, go to a networking event, go meet people for coffee or lunch, I mean, I do everything virtually as a business. However, I was out 1 or 2 days a week because I like to be out with other people. But when you're meeting with a client outside, you have, coffee shop, there's all these other distractions, right? There's other things that are happening in the room, things are going on. The attention is not 100% on you. So the difference is, now you get onto a platform like Zoom or any one of them. Oh, yes, you're 100%. You are right there. Exactly, right? So you have, and I do the research, and the research says people will make a decision on you within the first 3 seconds of meeting you. And
That is amazing.
I'll say it again. In the
Thank you. I was just going to say, could you repeat?
seconds of meeting you. So, if you're going to be meeting someone on a virtual, and I really recommend it, this whole, world of trying to do email and text, it's all well and good once you've built the relationship with the client. But until you do that, and because we can't go face to face, virtual is the next best thing to being there. You have to show up. But you really only have a couple of minutes to do so. Actually, let me rephrase that, a couple seconds to do that. So I do have a couple tips I would like to share on what I believe is some of the best tips of showing
I
up.
think people would absolutely love that, because I know my clients are struggling, and just people that I speak with. So if you could just sort of jump in, what are some best practices? What do we need to be aware of?
Yeah, so the first one is, how are you showing up? So you have a couple options. What is your body language when that screen opens up, right? So make sure you are prepared, you're relaxed, you know what you're going to say. We'll talk about that in the other 2 tips. But what does your background look like, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people right now are working from home. So is the background of where you're actually doing the call professional? Is that something that you want to provide or convey to the person that you're talking to? The other thing is, are you smiling? And I know this is said over and over and over again, but when that screen opens, a smile really says a lot about you. It starts to build that trust very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So your body language, making sure you're professionally dressed. And I'm gonna rephrase that too, because we have clients that are a little bit more casual. And so what you want to do is kind of meet them where they are, but not too far. So
there's a line.
There is a line. I mean, if you're going in as the salesperson, or you're presenting your product or service, or you're actually going on an interview, you want to be dressed appropriately. Again, if I have someone who I'm working with that happens to be, and I'm going to say construction is very casual, I'm not going to show up in a suit. But I also have clients that are CEOs and tend to dress very, very professionally, and it's all business. I'm going to dress very professionally and be all business. So you want to match who you're actually going to go out and be talking to. So, and what that does is make them feel more comfortable. So you're mirroring the people that you're going to meet with. So that's my first tip: show up, make sure the background. And if you don't have a good background, there's some great virtual ones. I just talked to a woman yesterday that I was like, your office is amazing. She goes, it's not my office. It's a virtual screen. I'm like, I want that one.
But you definitely need a green screen, because if you don't, then you can be missing parts of your body, and it's really strange.
Yeah, you can't move on virtual ones, because if you start moving, you disappear, which is kind of interesting and a little bit weird.
I would love to add to what you just said, because it is so incredibly important on how we show up. We want to have a smile, right? We want to be present. We want to be listening. But also when the other person is talking, which if we're in a sales conversation, the other person should be talking more.
Right.
To be aware of what your face is like, because I know with me, when I've got that rested face, I can actually look really angry. It's like, oh, wow. So to just be very cognizant of that. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think we're concentrating so much on listening that we lose the thought of, how am I coming across?
Yeah, just be visible. I mean, body language, if you have a time to actually go in and say and look at how people, there's some great videos out there. You just YouTube it and just say, what does different facial expressions mean in body language? And again, if you're just listening, make sure you're listening, but make sure you don't have the pouty face on, because that's what people are seeing. And also, when you're in larger groups, I can't begin to tell you some of the faces that I see going on in the background. So whether you're doing one-on-one or you're doing large groups, be very cognizant of, if you're listening, listen with intent, but make sure your face looks, you're going to be judged on what you look like. I hate to say this, but if you have a pouty face, you're going to be judged that she's pouty and she's not listening. So yeah, you want to make sure your body language, and that goes for everything. The way you're standing, if you're not leaning over your phone. Mm-hmm. I've seen people on, calls, and they're not paying attention. And go ahead.
I just want to point out something that I mentioned on a previous call, and it was, if you are on speaker screen, you're only seeing the speaker and maybe one or a few people. If you're on with several people and you're not seeing yourself, that doesn't mean that the other people can't see you. I was on a group call one time when a woman was on her phone, and she actually went into the bathroom and her phone was up. So she wasn't on the call for several weeks after that, because she was embarrassed. But I just say it because that's enough to sort of shock you into, okay, just make sure that you have your camera off if you need to, but just because you can't see yourself doesn't mean the other person can't see you in a group setting. So sorry to hijack that, but that's a big one.
That's a real big one. And dress completely.
Yeah. No,
so, there's been videos out there that people have jumped off and they were only dressed from the waist up. And, again, things will happen. Someone might walk in the room, and if you have to get up for any reason, you want to make sure that you're not going to get caught.
Not in your boxers.
Yeah, with your short. Yeah. We'll leave it there. But a couple other tips that I want to share today too, Lisa. So that's showing up, and how do you show up on that? But the other part is to plan the call. And this is where you have the greatest opportunity to show up. And again, I'm doing a lot of talking here, but when I'm in a professional setting and I'm in a virtual, I have pre-planned everything that I'm going to ask, or at least I have a list of all the questions that I'm going to be asking this particular client. I'm going to plan the call. So I'm going to go out on social media. Boy, has it made that so much easier to get to know who people are, right? So I'm going to go into their LinkedIn profile. I'm going to find out who they are. I'm going to find out what groups they belong to, what kind of organizations. What are my shared values with them? What are they passionate about? What are some of the things that you can connect with them? Because when you start talking, you really want to talk about some things that you can connect on a more emotional level, right? So building rapport and building connections is really about getting on a deeper level with somebody. And that's how you build trust. And this is all public information. It's not like you're stalking somebody.
It is. When you showed this to me, I was like, "This amazing! You can find so much to talk about."
Exactly. And so I have one person. I'll give you an example. So I was meeting with someone for the first time on a Zoom call, and I did the research. And I'm very passionate about animals, which everyone who knows me knows I've got multiple pets, all four-legged, and those are my babies. So when I connected with her and I went on her LinkedIn account, I found out that she's on the Humane Society, which is near and dear to my heart, obviously with her because she's on the board. So one of my first questions to her was like, how did you get involved with the Humane Society? It's one of the things that I am completely passionate about. How did you get involved? What did you do? I found out she has been rescuing dogs from this particular rescue or Humane Society. Loved the mission so much that she wanted to join and be part of it. Immediately, we formed a bond. That was a connection. I now know about her dogs. I know about her pets. These are things that she values, and I have a genuine connection with her because I also am a huge pet person or animal person. So find things that are on there. What kind of groups do they belong to? Organizations. You learn a lot about people. And don't forget about Googling somebody. I think we talked about this before too, you and I, Lisa, with
that was such a mind-blowing thing when we went through and researched someone that I was going to be speaking with. Completely opened up and shifted the dialogue that happened because of just that search, because I knew more about him.
Yeah, because you can Google somebody, and especially when you're dealing with people that are out in the public eye, they get interviewed a lot. They'll have papers that they might have written. And what you're trying to find out is, who are they? What are their tones? What are their personalities? Give you an example, like Lisa, I'm going to use you because when you jump onto Lisa's, well, if you jump onto your website, right? Go onto someone's website. I know when I go onto Lisa's website, she's a little more playful, right? So when I have the conversation with Lisa, I can be a little bit more playful because that's what I see going through her LinkedIn account, her photos, the way she speaks, the font she uses on her website. You can learn a lot about people by how they created their website and what they put into it. So when you start asking questions, you can ask them things that apply to them and the tones a cadence and tone that you know is going to resonate with them. So yeah, it's amazing the information that is out there and it's at your fingertips. So research who you're going to talk to. And then when you start that conversation, remember it's all about them. Mm-hmm. You're asking them questions. They might ask you a question, and this is my tip to everyone. So every time you get on a call, people are like, oh, tell me a little bit about yourself. And I'd be like, I'll give them my 30-second commercial about why I believe sales is such a wonderful thing to know, which I shared with you at the beginning of the video. But I'm like, today's about talking about you. I want to find out more about what you're doing, why you're doing what you're doing, and what are some of the things that mean the most to you. And it just changes the whole conversation.
Especially if you've done the research and can say, I noticed this program. And yeah, I just want to back up for a second and share a quick little story of the work that Rhonda and I did together that completely changed the way that I approach speaking with someone. And when we researched this gentleman, we really found out that he's data-driven, analytical. So his way of speaking was going to be more likely stick to the facts, don't go off and wander and talk about feelings, which I'm like, Rhonda, I'm going to sit down and chat and have the conversation. So when I was able to know ahead of time, my energy was ready to present in that way. And it was absolutely spot on. Selling in a virtual world, it went very smoothly because of the way that Rhonda taught me how to show up and how to do the research.
Yeah. And so, I talk a lot about getting that personal piece, but there are going to be people that are not going to want to talk about the personal. And you can read that through a lot of things that they write, but they're very passionate about their company. So as a tip, I would definitely go in and take a look at, or highly suggest that you go in and look at, what are some of the awards maybe their company has won? What are some of the accomplishments? Where are they in the process? And you can ask them about their business. What are some of the things that you're doing and how are you managing it? Right now, one of the best questions you can ask is, how are you dealing with COVID-19? And how are you looking to move your business past this once we get through it? What are some of the things that you're doing? What are you trying to achieve right now? And are there any challenges that you are looking to try to help solve? Because I look at the end of the day, I might not be the person that they're going to hire today, but I might know 2 or 3 people that can help them solve what they're going to disclose to me. And it's not about customer-centric sales, which is what I teach. It's not necessarily about me making the sale today. And it's not necessarily about me getting the business right now. It could be tomorrow, it could be next year, it could be 5 years from now. The whole goal is to understand the client and take that time to really understand who they are, what they are trying to do, and what they're trying to achieve. And can you help them? And a lot of times, well, some of the times I can actually match them up with some other people that might be able to help them today, and I can help them tomorrow. And so that's a really great point, Lisa, bringing up that particular one, because he was much more corporate, very accountant, very data driven. If you start asking him things about his pets or his family, he might have shut right down on you. Maybe, maybe not, but it wouldn't be the place I would suggest starting.
No, I mean, but that also comes very naturally to me. So if it had shifted, then I would be able to follow his energy and the conversation. But that's because I did my research and I was fully prepared and I have my list of questions. Can you talk a little bit more about, doing the research and coming up with some questions? Are you willing to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, one of the things that I teach in all my classes is really having, knowing the who, what, where, why, and how, right? If you're going to be talking to someone, you should have a list. And this is actually point number 3. Be fully prepared on asking strategic questions about what are their goals? What are they trying to achieve? Are they going to be making a decision on making some changes in their organization? Really going through and asking about strategic questions, because what you're trying to do is get them to really open up about what they need and want. I mean, there really comes right down to, you have a product or service, so you can ask them a series of questions about them, but it's also okay to ask them questions to find out whether or not they need your product or service. So you can change the way you ask questions to say, would something like this be of interest to you? And that's opening the door to get them to talk about some of the services or the products that you might be selling. Because sometimes people don't know what they need until you kind of prompt them a little bit. So that's why part 3 is really taking a look at all the different questions you could ask this person before you get on the call. So this is about being prepared. It's about planning. What are those different questions that you could be asking and really getting deep? I'll give you a couple examples. I've asked people too when we started talking about projects, and I would ask them about when they plan on doing the project, when do they plan on making a decision on who's going to be doing the project. So I get dates and times, and so now I understand what the timing is. But when I had sales teams, when I was running teams, I would go to I would talk to one of my sales managers and say, so when are they making a decision? They're like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, how can you call them before they make a decision if you don't know when? So there's a lot of questions that need to be asked so that you fully understand what the client needs when they're making a decision, how they're making, are they the decision maker, or who else is going to be involved, right? Many times I've gone in and there's been multiple people that are making the decision. And if you don't ask the question, you don't know. And sometimes you're just talking to the gatekeeper and not even to the person that's making the decision.
Then you're just not going to make it through. And I'm really hearing what you're saying is getting out there and asking those questions is incredibly important. Can you go a little bit deeper for those of us who feel like it could be pushy to say, so what is the time frame? To just give a little more insight on either why we do it, which I know you're just talking about, but just how do we get over that discomfort of, so what's your time frame?
And, every conversation is going to be a little bit different. I have a number of my clients have come back and said, Rhonda, what do I do when this happens? And I wish I could give them a one size fits all. I really do. I just can't. Every single client is going to be completely different, just like every single person that is different. So you have to time it. You have to feel it. One of the things that I suggest that when you start talking to someone is just ask them a few questions. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that? So if you ask them a question, again, you've set up the call, you're on a virtual call with them, you're having this conversation. They are expecting to answer questions for you. So, if you've thought out the questions ahead of time and they mean something to the client. So again, I'm going to push this over and over again because I do it on my classes. Lisa knows this too. Why is that important to them? Why would this question be important to them? Because what they want to know is that if I'm going to present to them, I have to have all the information. And when I ask them specific questions, it means I care about what they're going to say. It means I'm interested in knowing, I'm genuinely interested in knowing how they're going to make those decisions so that I can help them make those decisions with them, or I can help them with achieving the goals that they've set out to do. So really, really important to ask those questions and feel good about asking them. Again, how you ask those questions is going to entirely depend on the person who you're talking to. Like I have some clients that are just, again, very fun, very easy to talk to, and we can joke around, but I always make sure that I get those questions out. And I have other ones that say, I would start the call and say, hey, I've got 10 or 12 questions. I want to make sure you have got, what your timeline looks like. I'm going to go through a list of questions, and I really want to fully understand what your needs are and what you're looking to achieve, just to see if it's a really good match for both of us. So I think I really believe if you're honest at the very beginning on why you're showing up, and you're sincere, and you're asking those questions. And then, of course, the reason why is you want to listen, because if you don't listen intently to what their answers are, you can't possibly start to present.
I was just going to say, I mean, you're really talking deeply about the importance of asking the questions, which is absolutely the foundation. But could you elaborate on that listening with intent, which I think we so often don't do? We just want to get that question out, but then we don't really hear what's being said.
Yeah. So one of the biggest mistakes that most people make when they start doing sales, and it's a very common mistake, we all do it. I talked about the laundry list at the very beginning. When we first meet someone, we're so excited to get that appointment. We just basically dump everything. We try to do our sales presentation in the first 2 minutes because we're afraid we're going to run out of time. So what I advise my clients to do and people that I work with is back up just a little bit. Your first meeting should be finding out why, who, what, where, why, and how for this particular client. If you run out of time and don't have time to present to the client, that's absolutely okay. Set up a second meeting to go back in. Tell them that you want to just really absorb everything that they need. And can we set up a second meeting? I believe this is a really good fit, and I would like to talk to you about it. But the reason why you're asking those questions and listening is because what you want to do is when you get ready to start to present, you present based on what the client told you they needed and wanted. Not about the other 25,000 things that you do, because everyone wants, no, I want to tell you everything that I do. And it's like, no.
I use the analogy of the washing machine, right? Or the coins or.
Yeah, I use the laundromat. Like I went to the laundromat and I'm trying to do a load of laundry and I need 4 quarters for $1. So I go up to someone and said, hey, I do have 4 quarters for $1. And they start telling me about how to separate whites and darks. And then they start telling me about, the dishwashing soap that they use and what they advise. I'm like, I don't care about any of that. I just need 4 quarters to go do my laundry. Our clients are the same way. We get on the phone with them and they have certain things that they need and want. And yeah, they'll go through the pleasantries at the very beginning. If it's about them, you're going to keep their attention. Mm-hmm. And that's what I really want to talk about. If you really want to keep someone's attention, make the call about them. Hey, I saw on LinkedIn that this is things that you're really interested in. Would you tell me more about that? When you start with that, and then you move right into, so tell me, I saw on your website that your company is starting to develop. I just had a client just recently. I just saw that you're building a new building. So what's that about? And how did you come about, upon that? And what's the progress? And how is that going right now? And what are you going to be doing with that? Now they're completely interested because it's all of the things that they know. And now you're getting them to get very, very excited. So and then you just start moving your back into your questions, and then you're listening. And so when you're ready to present, you are presenting to exactly what the client just told you they need and want. If you have the ability to do that. Again, sometimes it's actually suggesting that maybe this might not be the best time, but you want to stay in touch with them because if their circumstances change, you can come back and work with them, or you might know somebody else. There's a lot of reasons why people might not be able to work with you today, right? I mean, sometimes it's budget. Maybe it's just not the right time. Right now, I have a few clients that they're not working right now, so I'm waiting for them to come back to work. So there's lots of different reasons, but the whole point is, how do you build that relationship very, very quickly? And that should be the basis for why you're actually getting on the call in the first place. You really should be talking to people about building that relationship so that you're building that trust, that competence, and really building that relationship. So that really is how you keep people engaged, make it about them, be prepared, show up professionally, keep smiling. It's, they're as interested too. If you can ask questions about them, you'll keep them interested through the whole call.
It's so true. It's so true. And we forget because we get so uncomfortable that we just sort of jump in and we want to be of service. Can you talk a bit about the percentage of people that are ready to buy in the moment. I know that's a
Oh,
number
yeah.
that we've thrown out several times, and it's just, A, it's shocking, but B, and I think it also takes the pressure off, especially selling these days in a virtual world.
So prospecting is a big deal for a lot of people, because in order to keep your business building, right, you have to go out and start talking to new people. And I mentioned the word, I don't know which is worse.
I've tried to not do that. And it
I don't know if it's more sales or prospecting that gets people to like get ready to go get ill while I'm talking to them on the phone. But prospecting is really tough. But I tried to explain what is a good prospecting call, right? What does it mean by prospecting? And if you can get somebody on the phone, so whether it's the person that answers the phone and have a conversation, you don't necessarily get to the decision maker today, but if you can at least get someone within the company, get a contact, go onto LinkedIn, find somebody who is connected to this particular person. That's what I consider kind of a warm call. There's a report that came out from actually LinkedIn that I've been sharing with a lot of my clients, and I've known this. I mean, back in the day, we used to say it used to take 10 connects with a client to get them to do business. And now I think it's probably closer to 20, just because of the noise out there. There's so much noise between social media and now everything's coming at people. This report was great because, and I can share a link to it actually in the comments, which I think would be really helpful.
That would be great. Thank you.
According to the results, only 3% of the population is ready to buy from you the first time you call them, which means 97% of the people have no need for you. So never mind the fact that they're not going to do business with you. They don't have a need for you. So what's interesting is then the number starts to go up. So it goes up to about 7% on the second call and maybe up to about 9% on the third call. What's really interesting, and I know this to be absolute fact, most salespeople give up after the second or third call. So if you are persistent, and it's not necessarily call, I say call, but it's really contact. Like you can send, right, you can send emails, you can leave a voicemail, you can send them an article of something that's interesting, but you need to be front of mind, because it's not until the 10th or 11th time that when something happens within their organization or someone's having a conversation, they're going to go, oh, you know what? I remember talking to Lisa Danforth, and you know what? I think that would be a really good fit for our company. So what you're trying to do is become front of mind when everything kind of aligns up, the moon and the stars and the conversation line up. They now have a solution to something that they're interested in. And if you don't stay connected with them, you're just going to be lost in the noise. So yeah, it's a great statistic. I share that with all of my clients, and I'll share it here too, because it's just a great report.
I loved it when you sent that, because it was like, okay, it's okay to call back. It's okay to reach out. And I just would love to share a story that I have a new client that just came on board that I met 3 years ago. We chatted a couple times. We followed up. We chatted a couple times. I would reach out, just check in, see how she's doing. And she's finally ready to work with me. It was 3 years. When I was in my catering business, I had someone reach out like 4 years after they attended an event that I catered. She kept my business card. So I didn't even reach out to her. She just grabbed my business card. But it takes a long time of consistency. And I know you and I talk a lot about CRM. We don't necessarily need to go deep, but could you share just a couple of tips? Because it is something that is, we forget about, just sending a quick article, if they're traveling to Europe, you see something, or you just say, hey, have a great time in Italy. Can you just talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, CRMs are so important. I've worked my whole career with CRMs, and I've worked with a bunch of different ones. I have one right now that actually Lisa Danforth recommended, so that's what I'm using now. So thank you, Lisa. So you want to have a CRM, because what you want to do is keep track of all your clients that you're talking to. I mean, the best of people cannot keep track of who's who and what people are interested in. When you get into doing calls and working with multiple companies and lots of different people, you have to have a place where all your information is organized, organized so that you can go into the account and remember, what was your last conversation? What was that last email? You don't want to be going through your emails to try to find all your conversations. A good CRM will let you upload every one of your conversations, all the documents that you sent, have a note section. When I was in the hotels, we weren't allowed to get out of the account until you put all the notes and you set a trace date on when you were going to call that client. Oh yeah. And when I was a director, I did the same thing. I had it locked. They could not move to the next screen.
You're a hard ass.
Well, because human nature, you're just like, all right, next.
Right.
But if I forced them, or, it was just an option, but it became a habit for me. I do not leave my CRM in that particular account without setting up, and everyone who's worked with me knows this, what's your next step? When are you going to call them again? It doesn't have to be tomorrow, but it can be, okay, I think they're going to be ready to start having another conversation, or I should get back in touch with them in 2 weeks. That should have either a task attached to it, or you should be using your Outlook depending on what you're doing. But most good CRMs, mine I know has, I use the Less Annoying CRM, and I can put all my tasks, and every morning it sends me an email and it tells me what all the people I need to call today. So I'm not expecting myself to remember when I need to call these people. It's triggering it. And when I open up that account, it gives me all the notes on why I'm calling them back. What was the last discussion? What did they, where are they in the process? Because those are the questions I asked. And in the notes, I could write down a really good overview of what my conversation was and where I felt the customer was and what they needed and where they were going to be going, so that I have better information. And then when I send them these great articles, I also attach those up. That's one of the best things. Yeah. And I've had a lot of people, like I have one client who she's getting into different types of clients. So I'm like, okay, what industry magazines do you believe that would give you the most amount of information? Like, so if your target market is nonprofits, there's a lot of really good nonprofit magazines that are out there. If you're working with really more higher end corporate clients, you might want to get into like the Harvard Business Review. Just get a subscription. Read through it. See if you can find your clients' names. Google has an option. If you have not used it, you can tell it to trigger you when that company name or that person's name comes up in the news. And now you have
What is the name of that? I can't remember the app.
It just go into Google, and you can just go through into Google, and you can have it give you alerts, and it will tell you. Yeah, it's the Google Alerts. And I have done it. So all of a sudden I found out that a client won an award. I found out they were one of the top places to work with in Vermont. And what I would do is cut that out and just say, congratulations, I just saw this in the news. That's amazing. Congratulations on the great work. I already knew you were wonderful, but now everyone else in the world knows too. It just tells people that you listened.
Absolutely. And is what sets us apart, is truly listening and being able to follow up. I mean, I know you said 2 weeks, but I've put things on my calendar for 6 months out. I put all of my information down into my CRM, all of the notes that I can have, and then I save it. I've taken it out of my mind so that there's a little more space because it's a little crammed in there. Right. And when I circle back around to that conversation, 2 weeks, 2 months, 8 months, it's like I am right there. It was yesterday, and it really does make you look so brilliant. And you are, because you've done your due diligence, taken the notes, put them down so that you can follow up, and you're showing, especially in today's world, that you are doing your due diligence, and this is how you operate in the world.
And you care. And I think, that's what I believe too, is when I'm working with people, I really care about them. And so when I see things that, even when I'm not working with them, so, I might have worked with them on a particular, whether I was doing coaching or training or they were previous clients, when I see something that I think would benefit for them to know, I just automatically send it to them. And it's just a great way to connect. It's a great way to connect that's not salesy. It's just a genuine connection with someone you care about, and it shows care. And, I did a piece on this, is people do business with people that they know, but more importantly, people that they trust and feel are competent. And that really makes a big difference. And if you genuinely care and are interested in the other person, and you listen to them when they talk with intent so that you know what they like, and then you show up and send them things that apply to them, that's what really connects you with other humans. I mean, just on a simple, forget about the sales part of it, just that's what connects you with other human beings on a very different level.
Mm-hmm. And that's definitely going to help you sell in a virtual world and have conversations in a more comfortable way.
Mm-hmm.
So I've really heard you talk about show up, dress, make sure that your background is neat and clean, that you're not sitting around in your boxers. Do your research for that person, for the organization, for any awards that they've won or anything like that. Ask questions, be curious, prepare your questions ahead of time, and listen with intent, and listen with the ear of how you can serve them, not sell them, but serve them. Is there something that I'm missing? Can you add anything within that, or did it sum it up pretty well?
We can certainly get into presenting, but I don't think we have time in this particular one. It's just not enough time.
Yeah.
But before you start presenting, those are really all the things that you need to do first. So, I do challenge you to go through this process and talk to people and be prepared and show up. And don't worry about your presentation during this part. This is where you're supposed to be getting to know who you're talking to. The second part is, how do you start to present the benefits of what you offer that match up with what the client just told you that they need and want? And that's how you take it to the next step. And you really just find out at that point whether or not it's a really good fit. So whether you continue on and present, or you make the decision that maybe you're going to contact them at a later time, or you're going to refer them to somebody else. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot to know. There's a foundation of sales. There's, all sorts of different people in different situations. But that I think if you're trying to show up virtually, whether it's, and I was also thinking about this, if you're changing jobs right now, I mean, there's a lot of people that are out of work right now. All of this applies to you if you're out searching for a new job right now, because interviews are being done virtually. If you do the same thing on an interview that I'm talking about today versus a client, think about who the company is, do the research. What are they looking for? What talents do you have that's a good match for them? Because you should be interviewing them at the same time they're interviewing you. So if you can have those questions available, what's the company? What's the culture? What are they looking for? How does that work? How do the people interact within the organization? That's going to give you a really good idea if it's a good fit for you as you're heading out. So I talk about preparing questions for clients, but if you're interviewing, if you're going for a job interview, you should be interviewing the client or the new company that you're applying for, because a real successful match is with both people. It's a win-win. Both people are getting what they need. You're getting a great job. They're getting a great employee, and you're working together. So questions are so important. I've interviewed lots of people where they show up and I'm like, do you have any questions? They're like, no. And I'm like, you can't possibly know everything there is to know about my business. And that's when I
go away and come back.
Well, it just showed that they didn't do the pre-work. And, that's when we talk about competence and we talk about trust and we talk about connecting, it's very difficult to do that. And if you haven't done any work, and what's amazing is it's just so easy to find this information. We put it all out there on the internet. I think about when I first started, I'm going to definitely date myself. When I first started, we didn't have all this information. We had to go to, meet people face to face and ask them these questions. We had no access to it. But social media, LinkedIn, the internet, searching, you have so many opportunities to at least get a good handle on who you're going to be talking to. And then when I talk about mirroring, and then you're showing up not to who I want. And this is the other thing too. Everyone wants to show up I want to show up exactly the way I am. I'm not going to change for anybody. You have to show up for the person you're talking to, right? Because you want to make them feel comfortable. I was fortunate that I worked at the front desk of a hotel in Boston. So I met people from around the world, and I had to adapt seconds to different people as they showed up at the desk. And I guess that gave me the advantage that I realized how many different people there are out there. And so when you prepare and you know what kind of tone and cadence and how are you going to start that conversation, like if you had started for that client that you talked about, if you started off in this real, bubbly, it probably wouldn't have resonated with him as much as you knew that he was more data orientated, and you were able to come in a place to make him comfortable. And that's really what we're trying to do. Let's make the other person on the other end of the Zoom call very comfortable, get them at ease. And that's really what you're trying to do. And that's why you're trying to find out about them. How do you formulate those questions? And you're kind of doing a fact check, right? Hey, so I saw this on here. Is that right? Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Could you elaborate? How did that make you feel? Where are you going with this? And what's your plan? And what's your long-term plan? And, that's, when you talk about being genuinely curious, it's asking that next question. So don't take what they say on face value, dig a little deeper.
Right. Be curious. Do your due diligence. I just want to back up a little bit because I agree with what you were saying about mirroring 110%. But I just want to mention and ask you about pushback. I do get people who are like, well, I have to be who I am. I don't want to, give up who I am. But we all have so many facets to who we are. I'm different when I'm with you. I'm different when I'm on camera. I'm different with my kids, with my friends, with the school board, whatever it may be. We all have different facets of who we are. So we can really take the components. For me, it was toning down the bubble. I'm
Right.
like, hey, how you doing? To putting it into a more, that business strategy, just the more strategic, bottom line kind of conversation, which I absolutely can be. But it's tuning into that, not being someone that I'm not. I'm just taking a piece of myself and leaning into that so that I can mirror the other person. I just wanted to highlight because I can hear, I can, as in the audience, not participating in this conversation before, it's very easy to say, well, I'm not going to give up who I am or just be someone entirely different. It's not. You're actually being of higher service because you're leaning into who you are at the level that you need to be to serve this other person. So forgive me for sort of taking that one and hijacking it.
No, it's a great point, Lisa. I mean, we wear different masks at different times anyway. Mm-hmm. And it's just, again, we have different parts of us and we show up differently as we do at home. We show up differently at work. We show up differently with different individuals. It's just the same thing. So if you look at how you show up, you're going to show up differently if you're going to talk to your grandma than you are with your son or a child. I mean, there's different people that you show up a little bit differently. So if you think about mirroring, would you talk to, a 70-year-old grandma the same way you would talk to a business executive from New York City? Mm-hmm. So there's different you're trying to relate to that person and make them feel as comfortable as possible. You wouldn't start talking super fast. So just keep that in mind on who you're talking to and tone it down or bring it up a little bit. I mean, you can play with that too. You don't want to lose your personality, but sometimes you do need to tone it down a little bit.
We're coming up on the hour. Yep. So I just want to sort of wrap it up and basically, I'm going to add one more thing to what I heard you say, which is dress, be prepared, research, do your due diligence, ask those questions, be curious, listen, right? But again, summing it up with do your due diligence, wrapping it all up together. So is there a question that you would have asked yourself that I didn't ask you?
I think we covered pretty much everything. I think, again, a lot of people are very uncomfortable when we talk about sales and what sales is. And they're like, I'm not a salesperson. And I want people to believe that, first of all, humans are not born knowing how to sell. It is a skill. It's something that needs to be learned. You need to practice this. It's not comfortable when you first do it, but it's not comfortable doing anything that you learn for the first time. If I was going to go out and try to build something tomorrow with no directions, I probably have some challenges there. But if someone took the time to teach me how to build this thing and then showed me how to do it and I practiced it and I made them multiple times, I would get very good at it. Sales is the same thing. Showing up virtually is the same thing. You're not going to excel at it the first couple times that you do it unless you're just one of those people. There are a few out there. But it's going to take practice. It's going to take time. It's going to take you getting yourself out there. It's knowing that it's okay to be human. It's okay to show up, but try to learn as many of the skills as you can. These are some great tips. There's many more out there. practice them, put them in, try learning them, try practicing them, and then incorporate them into every day. If they work for you, great, keep them. If they don't, move on and find something else that works for you. But the trick is this is all skill building, and you have to learn it in order to be able to master it and get to the other side. And it's not going to be comfortable the first bunch of times you do it. So don't expect it to. So that's pretty much how I wanted to just let people know. If you're not comfortable with this, it's totally okay. It's the reason why I do my coaching and I do my training and I help people build that confidence, because when the more you learn with anything, and sales is exactly the same way, the more you learn, the more you practice, the more comfortable you get at it, you build more confidence. And that confidence is what allows you to show up authentically to you and then be able to ask these questions and feel good about doing it, because you're doing it for the right reasons. Mm-hmm. And especially if you're doing it in a customer-centric environment where it's about the person that you're meeting and talking with, that's how it changes that whole environment, where it doesn't become salesy. It really is about the other person. So you're not trying to sell them anything. You're trying to find out whether or not you can help them. And so when you come into it with that set of eyes, you're not feeling salesy, and you can feel really confident to kind of take it to the next step. But it takes practice, and it takes time, and it takes skill.
It does. And I have really enjoyed working with you, because I've had to implement all of those, and it is really paying off. So like I said, as we're coming up on the hour, I just want to reiterate before we close out a couple of the talks that we have coming up, the LinkedIn Lives that we have coming up. So October 1st is Lori Hybe from Keystone Clicks. And she also has a podcast, Social Capital, talking about why research is vital in developing your digital marketing strategy. October 8th, John Shraven is going to be talking about negotiations. October 15th, ex-Navy SEAL or Navy SEAL teamwork expert Bill Atkinson is talking about leadership. October 22nd, Lisa Wilson is also going to be talking about leadership, but leadership in tough times. So many fun conversations coming up. So please mark those on your calendar. All of them are on Thursdays at noon. Rhonda, I just want to thank you so much for showing up today and sharing all of your brilliance and your wisdom. And I can just attest to the work that Rhonda does truly is unique. It's different than the most approaches to sales. So where can people find you? Where can they reach out to you if they'd like to?
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for having me on today too, by the way. RondaBerns.com is my website. You can also find me on LinkedIn. So just Ronda Berns, and that's RondaBerns. And you can find me on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on my website. I do training classes, and I do one-on-one coaching as well. So let me know if I can help you out if you have any questions. And if you leave any questions on this particular format too, I'll be sure to answer you as well. So feel free to reach out on Lisa's page, because she's great about getting things back to me too. Thank you for having me here today.
It's been really great. It's been such a joy to bring you to my community, because I just know the impact that you make. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. That is a wrap. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And as always, to your success.
Cheers. Thanks. Thank you, Lisa.